So I had a pretty long history of being a serial monogamous with a long history of infidelity. And so pretty much like almost everyone I was with, I ended up in some way not being faithful to them. And a lot of it came from like a really shameful place because I would be with someone and really be in love with them and like respect them so much and love the partnership, but still find myself really attracted to other people, having connections with other people. And what I was feeling, because I didn't have any like good role models or, any sort of realm of experience beyond the monogamy box, was like, oh, I'm broken.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 297. We're Finn and Emma. Hey, we're almost to 300.
We are.
It's exciting. I just have to point that out.
I know, I can pick up the excitement in your voice. You've been spending too much time with me. Hey, everybody. We are super excited for episode 300.
You're right. That's not my normal level of excitement.
Let's try it again with some excitement.
We're almost at episode 300.
We are. And we have something super exciting coming, but we can't tell you what it is.
Yes, that's true.
Because if it doesn't happen, then we didn't let you down.
Wow. Why do you have to add that part? We still have something super exciting, no matter what.
It is.
Anyway. Today, we are excited about episode 297.
Yeah, let's live in the present, Emma. You keep telling me, live in the present, Finn. So does our therapist.
It's too close to home, doesn't it?
Slightly.
Okay, anyway, today, in the present,
we're excited.
Episode 297, we are talking to Katie and Beau. We have such a fun conversation with them. They've been together about 6 years and exploring non-monogamy about 1, so they're relatively new.
Yeah, well, the good news is they got into that right before their wedding.
Yes.
So just, yes. You fall in love with somebody 4 months before your wedding and then you just figure it out.
Yep.
But I think what's amazing about this conversation is the way that these two have figured it out. And it wasn't quite as flippant as I made it sound.
No.
There has been a lot of intentionality about how they got into it, why they got into non-monogamy, and how they're navigating it. And it is, as Emma said, is beautiful. And we're just really grateful to both of them for coming on and for their honesty and vulnerability. We talk about some hard stuff. And
we do.
Some honest stuff. And it's really beautiful. So thank you, Katie. Thank you, Beau. We're really grateful. And we're really excited to get this story out there.
Yeah, for anyone who's a premium subscriber, we're going to jump right into the interview right now. And for anyone else, we're going to go through a few announcements. First up, if you're not familiar with the premium subscription, you can sign up for as little as a couple bucks a year on our homepage, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Just scroll down a little bit. And by signing up for the premium subscription, it's a way to skip these announcements up front. But don't worry, you still get important dates in the outro.
And if you skip these up front, you're skipping our enthusiasm, which is just palpable.
But we want them to sign up for the premium subscription.
We do.
If they want to.
Right. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do.
We just like to offer the option.
That's right. Because the next 47 minutes are announcements.
That's not true. Don't worry.
So the first other announcement is our community. We just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of the members who are currently part of the community. And we wanted to extend an offer to anyone who is out there looking for support or for friends or for just people who are like them.
Yes.
And our community is full of these people. We have 300-ish of you all. You're all amazing, and we would love for you to join us. If you're interested, if you're looking for community, people like you, maybe it's a little isolating out there. Not anymore.
You got community.
You got community and enthusiasm. And so you find that by going to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and you click on the community tab, and there is a button right there that'll say join the community or community. It'll say something like that. I don't remember what it says today, but it definitely doesn't say weekly groups, because that's something very different that Emma is just chomping at the bit to talk about.
Well, under the community, it does say weekly groups.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I wouldn't say it's very different because it's part of the community.
That's true.
But what it is a more intimate
Sure.
version of the community, I guess, because the weekly groups, we do weekly calls. Finn has been doing a weekly men's group since last fall, and I've just started a weekly women's group. We're capping the groups at 10 people, and we do a weekly 90-minute call, and then we have a separate space to chat throughout the week. So we do have space in that women's group, and we also are working on a gender inclusive group, as well as Finn's working on another cohort of the men's group. So we would love to have you join us. If you're interested, go to that weekly groups tab on our website and read about it, find out more, and reach out with any questions as well.
Yeah, and maybe because we're confusing as hell today, it's worth reiterating that the weekly groups are part of the community. So if you're part of the community, you can access the weekly groups. It's additional, but that's how you access them, through our community. And if you are part of our weekly groups, you will also be part of the greater community. And part of the greater community, we do a monthly Q&A. We also do monthly men's group and monthly women's groups and other calls throughout the month. But these were specific weekly calls that are addition to those that are included in the monthly or the standard community.
Yeah, we're trying to make it as confusing as possible.
Yeah, and I think we did a great job to confuse them, but ultimately excite them with our enthusiasm.
Intrigue them.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you're thoroughly confused, you can reach out to us at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. You click on the Contact Us tab. You can send us an email. You can send us a really confusing voicemail and teach us a lesson, give us a taste of our own medicine.
Ask us questions so that we can clarify.
Yes.
While you're over there on our website, don't forget to check out our favorite way to get tested for STIs, stdcheck.com. Did you notice I didn't say it super fast?
I was trying to not dwell on it today.
But stdcheck.com is our favorite way to get tested for STIs. It is fast and discreet and super simple. It is also affordable at only $129 if you use the links on...
Don't lose the links.
If you use the links on our webpage, $129 gets you a 10-panel test and supports the podcast.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And don't lose those links.
No, use them. Use them.
Use them, don't lose them. And with that, we're going to jump into this amazing, beautiful conversation with Katie and Beau. And again, we apologize if we confused you around the groups, the weekly groups and the monthly groups. The point is, you want to get that in your life.
It's all about community.
And we would love for you to join us. So send us an email if you have any questions. And with that, we're going to go talk to Katie and Beau, and we'll see you on the other side.
Let's go. Welcome to the podcast, Katie and Beau. We're excited to talk to you today. Thank you for spending your, what day is it, Tuesday evening with us. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
We would love for you to start just by introducing yourselves at whatever level you're comfortable.
Well, hello.
And they pointed at each other.
We're both on the same page, clearly. My name is Beau. I am my pronouns are he, him. I'm a spoken word artist out of the New England area.
And I'm Katie. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an entomologist.
Love it.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Yes.
And maybe just very high level, what brings you to a podcast about non-monogamy?
Sure. So we're polyamorous. We've only been in this world for a very short amount of time. What is it?
Little over a year.
Little over a year, like literally like a year and a month since we've been officially like out as poly, at least to each other. Yeah. So we've had a really interesting journey so far that's been really eye-opening in terms of who we are as individual people, and also just a really interesting experience in terms of how we approach relationships in general. And it's brought us a lot closer together.
Absolutely.
So we just have a lot of like fun things to share about that experience, especially for people who are new to it and are like, oh my gosh, like, what can this look like? And I mean, it's our firm belief that there's many ways to like have a relationship as there are relationships in the world. So
Totally.
We just kind of want to be another pebble on that mountain of experience.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited.
I'm curious, before you dive into more questions, I have a question. How did you two meet and how long have you been together?
Ooh, so this is fun. So we're both from the same area in Maine, and we actually had never met while we were out there. And I mentioned I'm a spoken word artist. I went to Ireland for an artist in residency position out there to do poetry and start writing a book out there. And I was there for about a month, and I was having a great time all by myself, enjoying it all. And then on my last week there, I got a text message from a mutual friend of ours that had a group message together, and it said, "Hey, Beau, this is my friend Katie. I vouch for both of you. You're both really cool. Katie is actually on her way to Ireland right now to start her PhD, and she doesn't know anybody. And I don't even know if you guys are in the same side of the country, but would you want to meet up and like show her around?" And it just so happened we were in the same town. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? I got nothing to do this week, whatever. And I like you, you're cool. So I trust you. And then, we met at the,
I said, okay, too. And I also sneaked a look at his social media profile, and I was like, he's really hot. And so apparently it was like the International Oyster Shucking Festival in the town.
Of course it was.
Yeah, it's a common way to meet people.
And the place where he suggested we meet, because he knew the town better than I did. I just come in. Apparently there was a parade going straight through the middle of it. And so we met in the middle of a parade, over these little tiny kid tromboners, heads. I'm like, hi. And honestly, it was just easy immediately. We hugged in the middle of this square, and it was it literally felt like a thunderclap. I was just like, oh my God, this might be my person. And I have never been a love at first sight type of person, but Beau is really easy to fall in love with too. So we went out for a drink, and that turned into
polyamory
an entire evening. but then he moved back to the United States. So this is the thing, is we only spent a week together, and then he had to go back, and we were like, what do we do? We've had this whirlwind week together. And
you were just starting a PhD program.
Right. And I was actually kind of psyched to be single because, not non-monogamous yet. And I was like, I'm going to hook up with all these hot, nerdy ento guys. They do exist, I promise. And we basically just decided sure, what the hell, let's try long distance.
Yeah. Cause I was on tour for about a month on the East Coast, and I had done well enough where about 3/4 of the way through the tour, we'd been talking every day on the phone, and I called her up and I was like, "Hey, I think I can buy a plane ticket to see you. Would you be okay with that? Do you want that?" And she's like, "Absolutely." So at the end of the tour, I did my last show in Massachusetts, and I jumped on a plane, flew out to Dublin, and then we hung out for a whole nother week straight. And that's when we were like, do you want to do this thing? Mm-hmm. And she's like, hell yeah, I do.
But then we only really saw each other in person 2 more times before he moved in with me 6 months later in Ireland.
Still in Ireland. I love it.
Yeah.
So it's always been a little unconventional with us, but we're really good at communicating, and we have been ever since the beginning. So it's always just been okay, what feels right to us in this moment, even if it doesn't necessarily fit into the typical relationship box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And how many, just for context, how many years ago was that?
So it was September 2017 is when we met the first time.
Cool.
Yeah. And we got married August 2022. So we're not even married a year now.
Yay.
Wonderful. Well, that's a wonderful story. I love it.
Yeah. It's beautiful, and it's fun, right? The way you were introduced, and then I'm assuming you lived in Ireland for a few years before moving back to the States.
About 4 years we lived there. So we lived in Galway for a while, and then then we ended up moving halfway across the country to the other side a couple of years later. So
yes, we got to see the whole thing. It was great, and my work also allows me to go to some really remote and private areas, some really cool farms and everything, because I'm looking at pollinators. So we saw so much of the country that no one else gets to see, which was also just an amazing way to spend our time together.
I love it. I love it. So did either of you have any non-monogamy inclinations, thoughts, feelings before the two of you met? Or was this just something you cooked up together?
Not together.
I think we both have different experiences, so we'll both tell ours.
Yeah.
Kind of our history, I guess.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Cool. So I had a pretty long history of being a serial monogamous with a long history of infidelity. And so pretty much almost everyone I was with, I ended up in some way not being faithful to them. And a lot of it came from a really shameful place, because I would be with someone and really be in love with them and respect them so much and love the partnership, but still find myself really attracted to other people, having connections with other people. And what I was feeling, because I didn't have any good role models or, any sort of realm of experience beyond the monogamy box, was oh, I'm broken. I'm a sex addict or something like that. Not that sex addicts are broken, but I just couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And I just kept hurting people. And so it was a really frustrating few, relationship history. So eventually, when we decided to open things up, it just felt like everything clicked into place. I was oh my gosh, I finally am able to develop beautiful, loving relationships, still loving this first person. So that was kind of my struggle that eventually led me to thinking this might be right. But we didn't really come to it together. Once we started dating, that's when we both started meeting people for the first time who were polyamorous and started having conversations where I was more that kind of sounds cool. And you I'll let you tell your part, but for the most part, you were kind of no.
Oh yeah. I'm kind of I don't know, never wanting to hurt anybody, never wanting to do anything bad kind of thing. So I never actually did anything out of the realm of the relationship I was in. I would always end it, or it would end or whatever before I acted on anything. But I did find that I always had that urge, the natural urge to want to explore relationships, and always feel kind of held back a little bit in terms of what I wanted to do. But it is just kind of a sacrifice I made because it's all I knew, because there was monogamy is the standard, in air quotes here. So that's kind of the only role models we have. And so that's what I followed. And when Katie and I started dating, we were on the phone one time, and I remember her saying, cause we were long distance for the first 6 months we were together. So most of our first conversations were on the phone. And so I remember her saying, I'm actually surprised, because I always saw my first, I always thought that the person I was going to be with for the rest of my life, that relationship would be more open. I didn't really see it as a monogamous thing. And I had never heard anybody talk like that before. I had no idea what that was. And I was oh, okay, well, that's good to know. That's definitely not what I'm into. So, I want you to know that I don't want to hold you back. If that's the way you want to go and that's what makes you happy, then cool. But that's not what I'm used to. That's not what I'm into. I want to just let you know ahead of time. And you were oh no, that's totally fine. I like you a lot. I don't care. Yeah, let's just be together. We'll be monogamous. It'll be great. And it was for a very long time. And then for me, everything kind of took a turn about a year ago.
Yeah.
So I was on tour out west this time. And
can I interrupt you?
Oh, please do.
Yeah. There's a little bit of lead up to what happens on this tour. So I just want to give a little bit of background. So just to kind of give this context, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Did not feel like it at the time. So I've always really struggled with anxiety. But when I finished my PhD, we also moved to a new state. We got a dog. It was a whole lot of transitions.
Like
and
moved to the States.
Yeah,
too.
moved back to the States. Huge culture shock. And I basically had a nervous breakdown. It was really bad and like not getting off the couch type of thing. And so as a result, I like stopped being interested in sex at all. I was like, I don't want anyone to touch me. Like, I can't handle myself living in my body right now, like, let alone anything else. And so that was something that was really hard, obviously, like, especially as, someone, we both typically enjoy that type of thing. And so that went on for a while. And then I was like, listen, like, this is just not happening for me. And I want you to experience love and pleasure and being wanted and desired. And I can't give that to you right now. So like, do we want to do an on tour rule? Like when you're on tour for your poetry, just kind of do you. And we decided to kind of try that out a little and just see what that would look like. So that was sort of our first touch with non-monogamy and what that might look like. We weren't even really thinking of it in that context, though. It was more like just kind of filling a need that couldn't be filled within our relationship at the time. So,
yeah.
I have a question on that, and perhaps Emma does as well. But my question is, I think, how did that land for you, Beau? Because a few years prior, when this came up, it sounds like you shut it down pretty hard, and now it's come back up. But it's sort of offered almost in a slightly different way. I'm just curious how it landed for you.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. It landed well because of the circumstances. Because, mind you, at this point it was 2021, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the fall of 2021. So it had been all of COVID that, we, couldn't see another person, couldn't touch another person, couldn't, and we're very social people, the two of us. Mm-hmm. So the fact that, our favorite thing to do is to go to shows and to go to poetry readings, to go to, and just hang out at the bar with people or whatever, or just have friends over. We used to have tea time at the house, and that was really cool. But yeah, the solitude that came with that was with COVID was really tough because out in Europe, or at least in Ireland, they put was it a 2 kilometer rule or a 1 kilometer rule where there was Gardaí in the streets, and anybody that was walking around, they'd have they'd check your ID, see where you were supposed to be, and then see if that was a kilometer from where you were, and if it wasn't, you had to turn around. So like that was it. So we couldn't see anybody. So that mixed with the issues that you were having with your post PhD situation. When she offered that up, it took me a second because I didn't know if it was real. And, there's a lot of filtering that has to go on, in that kind of situation. So I was like, okay, what is she saying? What does she mean? What can I do? What should I do? What do I want to do? And, shortly after that landed on, I think actually I said, let me think on it, is what I initially said.
Yeah.
And then I think a week later, she was just like, so what do you think? And I was like, oh yeah. Yes. I think I would like to do that.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I don't know, it must have helped to know that like, I'd been sort of down with it before, so you already knew I was sort of more open to that concept. And it was me saying, you go do it, rather than like me saying, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure that was probably an easier way for it to come in for you.
Yeah, because I also am the kind of person that really needs, for whatever reason, I'm a lot more comfortable doing things when I have permission. Mm-hmm. I don't often tend to ask for the permission, but just like a head nod or like some sort of context to know. So it was really helpful to know that was what you were offering.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was really confident about it. It wasn't like, it wasn't a sad thing. Like, it wasn't like, God, like, I suck. It was more just
No.
I do not want to do this, but I want you to have this. So if you want it, this is where you can go to get it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you, Katie, is like, it sounds like when you laid it out, you were confident in it, which, imagining yourself in that place is not an easy thing to necessarily get to. Like, if you're struggling really hard with where you're at yourself and then be like, oh no, I need to think about, my partner, and I'm not interested in this right now, but maybe, I would imagine in some ways, maybe it gave you some relief too. And so I just wanted to know if you could touch on like what was going on for you in that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the word you just used, relief, was exactly what I felt because, I think I was feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of shame for not being able to engage in sexual activities with Beau. And like, because being a sexual person was always like a really big part of my identity. So I felt like a big part of that had been lost. And, also, as I think a lot of people do, attached a lot of my worth to my ability to like always be down. And so when that went away, it was like, it was like every time it would come up, it was triggering these really painful parts of my brain of like, not only am I not able to do this anymore, I'm like a worthless person because I can't. So to not have it be sort of brought up in this context anymore, because I like knew he was getting it somewhere else, was like, okay, I can just like focus on what's happening right here now. And I don't have to like be worried about like having to like reject him again. Because that was the major thing that was happening for me. Like, because no one wants to reject their partner who they love. Like, and having to do that so often was painful and it wasn't good for us. So the idea of him being able to be with other people was like, made me feel like I could be more comfortable around him. And like, I was like happier with just the general situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And if you're okay sticking on this for a moment, because I think clearly this was a pivotal moment in your partnership. And I think this is a pivotal moment in probably many people's partnerships and you're not the first people that we've talked to where there's been a libido imbalance or some experience that has come up that has caused one or the other person to change significantly for any reason. And I think what was interesting about what you just sort of outlined, Katie, was that you tied so much of your worth and your value to your ability to do this thing that you then said, hey, person I love and want to be with for the rest of my life, go do this thing that I'm attaching all of this meaning and value to with somebody else. And I can see two sides of this coin. There's the side of, okay, I have the relief where I don't have to provide it. But at the same time, if you've put all this weight on this activity and now this person's doing the activity with somebody else, it's a pretty quick walk to, well, they're going to develop something akin to what we have because all of their worth is tied up in this activity. And I'm just curious how you sort of parsed through that for yourself.
So it's interesting that you asked that because I almost feel like this question becomes more relevant further down the line in like our story into polyamory, because one thing I'll just say about Beau and I is we've just always felt super connected to each other and had just immense trust and communication that like it was probably with Beau the least I attach my worth to that. I'm able to like see myself as a whole human in his presence more than almost any other person in the world. And he makes a lot of people feel that way. He's, I think anyone who is his friend will also say the same thing. He's very good at seeing people for their wholeness. And so it felt more like the other parts of me could just like could blossom a little bit more when that pressure was taken off. But like I said before, it's really interesting that you bring that up because it wasn't until actually, and this is skipping ahead several steps, but why not? Yeah. It wasn't until I started dating that I realized how prevalent that still was for me. Like the only reason I'm able to say to you right now, I attach a lot of my worth to my sexuality is because of like the inner searching and like the revelations that have come from dating outside of this partnership. So I might save some of those details for later, because I also really want Beau to share kind of, because as much as this was like this was like the sex side of things.
Yeah.
What came next was like what led us to now like the lifestyle that we really have come to love so much.
Well, and first you went on tour, so maybe that's the next logical step. And I know we jumped forward and now we're back again, but I think take us onto the next step.
Yeah. So Katie comes to you, tells you that you can do that, like go sleep with other people while you're around, or get your needs met, whatever you need to do, and you say yes, and then you go on tour. That's where we left off, right?
Yeah. So actually, for even a little more context, the rule that we had was you can kiss somebody on tour. That's where we landed.
Got it.
And I was like,
I think we also said like hand stuff.
I think
high fives and fist pumps.
No, I'm pretty sure that was like kiss was good. Little more things where like maybe we don't talk about it, but please don't do anything. Kind of thing. And because again, we're coming from a monogamous mindset, a monogamous relationship. That's what we knew. We were engaged at that point, and that's kind of what we knew. And so this was, it's so funny thinking about like the idea of rules in that kind of way.
I know, right?
Now, but so I was on tour and I had been to this area of the West Coast before, and really I knew the people. I was very close with a lot of them. One of my best friends lives out there, and I had known this girl out there, this woman, this person, from being out there previously, and we had connected, and really like there was something there, and we knew it from the moment that we saw each other, and we really connected on a pretty solid level. But again, I didn't know at the time that from everything I had known, the structures I had lived by, I was like, great, so we're going to be super good friends. And that's that. While I was out there, I knew that they lived out there, and I was like, well, I'd really like to maybe get an astrology reading from you, because that's one of the things that they did. The night before, they were looking at my chart and saw a whole lot of poly in there, but didn't want to say anything, didn't want to bring it up. And we met up. This is the day before the show, and one of the first things I mentioned was, that we're
my fiance said it was okay.
Said it was cool to do this thing. So, and I didn't even bring it up as like a me and you thing. I brought it up as, I don't know, it just came out naturally somehow. I can't really remember.
I should have made you a t-shirt.
It went well. They were like, well, it says in your chart that you're poly, here, and here. And I was like, oh, no. I can just like kiss somebody is kind of, and they were like, no. I mean, yes, cool, great. And also, if that was something you wanted to explore, you seem to be astrologically suited for it. And I was like, I don't know what that means. So I know I can kiss somebody, and that's what I've been told.
So we're going to go with that reading for now. We're going to go.
I don't care what the planets say.
But it's really funny how I don't want to go too much into that, because that might be another episode. But when I was there, we connected on a level that we had never connected on before. And I had never connected with anyone in this way while I was with someone else. And the big thing that really hit my consciousness was that I'm feeling these huge feelings for this person, and nothing has changed about how I feel about Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized that, I was like, whoa, this is a big thing. This is something that needs exploring. So I actually had a conversation with me and Holly talked every day. We hung out every single day. And we got really, really close. And
while you were on tour, just for
while
context.
I was on tour. Yeah, while I was on tour. I was there for a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay, pause. I need to explore what this is, because I have incredible feelings for you, and we connect really well. And I have incredible feelings for Katie, and I don't know what that means. So let's continue.
But put a timeout on it, you know?
Let's put a timeout on it, and at least in the relationship, natural progression relationship kind of thing. But please, let's still talk every single day. I don't want you out of my life. And they felt the same way.
And I would actually say, to Holly's credit, she was almost more of like, you need to talk to your fiance before we like do anything else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it was kind of a mutual thing, but Holly was incredibly supportive of it and super.
Holly's amazing.
Yeah, super wonderful. One of the wonderful things was she never crossed a boundary that was not okay, and neither did I. And she was incredibly supportive of you and of us and of the whole thing. And I knew, more context, me and Katie were about to get married 4 months later.
I was saying, this was like just over a year ago, right?
Yeah, pre-wedding.
Yes. We're like actively planning.
But I knew in my heart and in my head that there was no way I couldn't follow through with this. And so and that's how I knew that it was that my heart was ready to do this, because I was just like, wow, it didn't even cross my mind that, well, I can't do this because I'm about to get married in 4 months. It was, okay, this is happening, and
I'm getting married in 4 months.
So I did the next logical thing. I went home and I found the only queer poly therapist in my state. And
solid move.
And I went to therapy.
But he like comes home and like he hasn't like told me the details of this, but like I can tell he's had like an experience because I know him so well. And so first thing he's like, yeah, I think I need to be in therapy. And I really want to find like a queer therapist. Like he didn't say the word poly, but he was like really intent on like a queer therapist. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and Beau at the time was like not identifying as queer. And so I was like, I guess just because they're generally more open. I don't know. Okay, sure.
The West Coast does that to people. You come out here and you just...
And also I was like noticing he was talking about Holly a lot, like my friend Holly. And it wasn't like threatening, but it was more just like, this person obviously means a lot to you. I'm seeing her name like pop up on your phone like over and over again. And there was like this, you weren't ready to talk about it though. So there was like, I think that was like one of the only times in our relationship that I was like, there is a bubble of things that are unsaid right now. And I don't know what it is, but I'm here for it. And I trust him and he will tell me when he's ready.
And that's the thing. We're very communicative.
Yeah.
And I made sure my thing was, I didn't want to tell you anything until I understood what was happening, because this is a whole new world and I did not understand what was happening. So I went to therapy, and after a while, my therapist was incredible. And she was the one that I was like, okay, one of my big questions was, okay, is this an identity or is this a choice? Which is the grand question in the queer community,
especially now leading up to Pride. Jesus.
Yeah. So I asked her, and she goes, "Well, it sounds like you love these two people," and I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Well, your heart's not gonna lie to you, so yeah, doesn't sound like a choice to me," and I was like, okay, cool, great. And later on, I've started to understand that even if it is a choice, it's still a legitimate life, and it's still it's still queer, and it's still wonderful, and still legitimate. But anyway, so she's like, "All right, you know what you got to do," and I was like, "I do." So I took Katie out to dinner. And
so nervous. I did not know what he was going to tell me. Like, I thought he murdered someone. Like, he was shaking.
You've already done the proposal.
Yeah, I was like, you're already getting married.
I know.
What is happening right now? Also, wait, before we get into this, can I share an extra little fun detail? Okay. So even when we were in the bubble of uncertainty where I'm like, I don't know what's happening. This gave me a big hint, but I was like, so Beau, seems like this Holly person is very important to you. You obviously have become very good friends in the last couple months. Would you like her to come to our wedding? And he cried. And so I was like, okay, so yes, bring her to the wedding. Still not aware of
what's going on.
But I was like, obviously this person's important. So I'm going to do what I only know, which is you're important to someone I love. Come closer, be a part of our community.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask one more question on this? Because there's a part in here that I'm curious about, which is you had, quote unquote, given permission to go and kiss somebody. Was part of that agreement that if a kiss happens, that gets shared? Or was all of these things, were those supposed to be under sort of the don't ask, don't tell umbrella? Because I'm curious, was it, I just leave it there because I have lots of questions about what maybe happened and what was shared around this.
I don't remember. I think
I'm trying to remember too. I think it was I could maybe ask you, or I didn't want him sharing the details without me asking first, maybe.
Okay.
And even then, it was more so did ya? And he would be like, yeah, but wouldn't be I met this person. We had a really intense connection. We made out like crazy. It was super hot. None of that. It was more yeah, I did.
Exactly. I think that, not to get too personal, but I think that the mentality behind it, or the energy behind it was, I think you would use this analogy one time of, I'm not going to ask you every time you masturbate. So, same thing. I'm not going to ask you if you did the thing. I might, or might, whatever. If
I don't need you to tell me every time you masturbate. Is more
that's
what it is.
Sorry, that's what it was.
Yeah, but I might ask you, be like, "Did you do that today?" And you can say, "Yeah," or "No." I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I think for me, if I had seen a message come through from somebody repeatedly on a partner's phone, I'd be like, I wonder if they kissed that person. That would have been my thought. But it sounds like you seem to have exercised an incredible amount of self-control.
I was just going to say the same thing.
I'm freaking blown away. You're just well, I don't know who this person is, but I guess they're coming to our wedding because he's crying now. So we're just doing this. So I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, patience. You had an incredible amount of patience too.
But again, Beau is just a really easy person to have that with. He's an incredibly trustworthy person. I've never seen him be malicious in his entire life. And a huge facet in the success of our relationship is assuming best intentions. Mm-hmm. So if and that's just always been a really huge thing in our relationship. So I assumed okay, he's not telling me something. I can only assume he's doing it for a good reason.
And you've also been really good at that. I mean, the only reason we were able to be where we were is because you are as patient, understanding as as you were. And so, together, it made the perfect storm of being able to discover ourselves in the way that we needed to.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
you went out to dinner.
went out to dinner, and I grabbed her hand, and I was like, okay, I am polyamorous. And I said it just like that. And because I hadn't really said it out loud. I hadn't practiced it. I hadn't done the thing. I was like, I am polyamorous. And she's like, okay, great. But she was like didn't say much because she wanted me to keep, obviously I had more shit to say. So I was like, okay. I discovered this about myself while I was out there. But the thing was, I hadn't reached the point where I was comfortable talking about Holly specifically. So I didn't, that was not on the table quite yet. And I hadn't gotten permission from her to talk, about it to Katie. I hadn't asked yet. So, I basically just came out to you as Polly, and was shaken and nervous, and
the waitress wouldn't leave us alone. She'd be like, do you need anything? And we're like, we're both crying. Can you go away?
we'll flag it when we're ready.
The service has never been that good here before. What the hell is going on?
And I'd kind of given examples of what me and my therapist had talked about, my therapist, one of the first things she said was, okay, with this poly lens, look back in your life and tell me if certain things make sense that maybe didn't make sense before, or maybe they did make sense, but now they make more sense with a poly lens. And I described how even on a friend level, every job I ever had, I had to have like a crew, and it was, mostly people I was attracted to and that were attracted to me. And, at school, I always needed to the more the merrier. I wanted to share my love as much as possible. I wanted to be as loved as much as possible. Felt comfortable enough to be loved as much as possible and love as much as possible, and really flex that heart muscle and just learn to see where I can grow with this. So I kind of gave examples of that kind of stuff and everything, and kind of where I landed and what that means now. And I looked at Katie and I said, so that's me. Do you still love me? Do you still want to marry me? And
I said yes. I think I actually was like, yes, yay, I'm so excited.
And she was game for whatever I was going to say. She thought I was going to come out as trans or as bi or as anything. And she's like, I'm ready.
I was like, whatever it is, I'm ready.
I love you. Let's move forward. And so it was very nice. And it was the best possible reaction.
Yeah.
Couldn't
well, especially because you knew he had been going to therapy, and you knew there was this, you know him well enough, you knew there was a process going on of some sort. And so exactly. I'm sure you're like, okay, I'm just going to prepare myself for pretty much anything and we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that one of the first things you said was, yeah, I mean, this is something I'm kind of familiar with, and this is kind of what I was hoping for in the beginning. And then you said no, and I was totally down to be monogamous, and that's fine. And but yeah, so you were it was a nice shoehorn into what we were eventually moving into.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to say too, I know that process for both of you is a really hard one to do. And the fact that you sat with it, both of you, in your own individual ways, and you were patient with each other and yourselves of this is a process. We're getting married because there's so much going on. Katie, you're dealing with the mental health things that you were dealing with and struggling with, and then you're planning a wedding, and there's a lot
of the majority of the planning of the wedding, so she had a lot of that on her shoulders too.
Yeah, poor timing, Beau. Come on, man.
There's a lot of pressure, and I can imagine for both of you feeling that need, like, oh, I gotta figure, like for you, Beau, like, I gotta figure this out. I gotta do this quickly and everything. And for you, Katie, like, I don't know what's going on with him, but I know that I just need to wait. And the fact that it went the way you did is just so beautiful, because you both allowed yourselves the space and freedom to let it be aligned when it was aligned. And that's just like such a beautiful example.
I think it's freaking incredible because, I mean, multiple things had to happen. As you just said, first of all, you had to set this whole thing up, and then you had a condensed timeline. And Beau, you had to feel safe enough and comfortable enough to come in a couple of months before your wedding and share this. And then Katie, you have to like take it all and be like, yeah, we're still getting married, and now we just have a new exciting adventure we're on together. And
in addition to all those like perfect things that had to align, I won't go too much into it, but it also would not have been possible at all if Holly wasn't as patient and understanding as she was, because if they weren't, then it would have been a completely different situation. And she also helped guide me through what polyamory meant, and what a certain situation could look like. And that was a very crucial element to this as well.
Thanks for including that too, because it's important. Like if that hadn't been the case, you could have felt a whole hell of a lot more pressure to figure, like, I got to figure this out like today, and I got to make an extreme decision.
And one of the other, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but one of the other things that we, in terms of terminology, that Katie and I have make sure to emphasize is we try and veer away from the idea of saying that we're polyamorous and more,
or we're in a polyamorous relationship.
Yeah, but we do tend to lean more into I'm poly, she's poly.
We happen to be married,
and we're married. So yeah, it's almost like the act of it is non-monogamous, and the essence of it is polyamorous.
Yeah. And I am going to bring a little bit of conflict into this, because we've been painted as a fairy tale poly situation.
That's what I was going to ask next, is like, where, what bumps along the road have you experienced?
Yeah. So I'd say like right after we had that talk, so we were kind of on a high in terms of like, oh my gosh, you just came out to me as poly. I'm really down for the idea. I'm like thinking about what that's going to mean for me, even though I still don't really want to have sex with anybody. But like, I don't know, maybe I'll like flirt with people and feel good about it instead of guilty like I have my entire life. So we were like exploring those possibilities. But the one thing we still hadn't talked about was Holly. And that was really hard because I think like you had said, I had really been trying to be patient because I had a good idea that he wanted to like tell me something about this and everything. And I knew that there was something going on with Holly, but like Beau hadn't explicitly come out and been like, I have a romantic crush on Holly. And so that still was existing, and I still was kind of like waiting for it and everything. And then I think I had like tried to bring it up, and you scooted past it, which I don't think you've ever done with me. So that was like the first time that I was like, okay, nope. Patience is done. I need to know what's happening now. Like, because then I was like, okay, now I feel like I'm being like purposely left out of the loop. Like, and everything feels like it's on the table, which again, like it wasn't even a huge bump in the road. It was literally like an afternoon of me being like, can you just be like really straight with me and like tell me what's going on? And he's like, that's really hard to do. But yes, like, Holly and I like have a thing. And I was like, okay, that's all I care about. I'm not mad at all anymore. Like, I just needed to know.
Yeah. It's and it was still the idea of figuring it out, and because both of us are working on this. Katie and I are working on this individually, but we like to offer complete presents with a bow, like right on top. Like, here's everything. I've thought of all the things. I can answer all the questions. The end. And I just hadn't had that yet. So it was tough. And our thing is neither of us like limbo. We just want to know, That's just who we are as people. Is the waiting is the hard part,
and
the anticipation is like the frustrating thing. It's like, just know or don't know, do the thing, don't do the thing. What's happening,
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's something that, I think me being more, okay, let's just me being more excited to just figure it out and race forward a little bit has been a little bit more of a theme since we did start actually pursuing non-monogamy in a downloading apps type of way. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably been the other thing that's been a little bit of a mismatch, because I had already come from this place. Like I said, I brought this up to him right in the beginning of our relationship of again, not having the language of poly or non-monogamy, but just being I don't know, I could see myself living on a hippie commune where everyone sleeps with each other and no one really knows whose kids are who, and we're all sharing resources, and that sounds nice. I would like that. Does that still exist? Mm-hmm. And I was kind of would you be down? And he was like, no. And I was like, cool. Okay. So I think that had always been a latent but unachievable dream in my head. Yeah, that's kind of a fantasy of mine, but that's not how the world works. So then suddenly to be presented with this is how the world works, and this is how your world works, and you can do whatever you want with communication. Anything is possible. I really was chomping at the bit to I want to tell everyone. I want to tell my mom. I want to tell my friends, Dave, my teacher. I don't know. I just wanted to tell everyone. I was so excited. So, but Beau was still whoa, I literally just figured this out.
And we haven't made
we're also getting married.
Yeah, we're in the beginning stages of all of this.
And that was one thing that we did agree, that we weren't going to tell anyone. We weren't going to do anything before the wedding. Yeah. We're let's just focus on us. We're not going to hook up with anybody. We're not going to start the real exploratory phase of this until after the wedding. Because we also anticipated because we started listening to your podcast and how other people's that was around the time we started listening to your podcast, because we were we need some resources, man. We can't just hop into this blind. And we were hearing about other people's experiences, telling their families, and how, there's not a lot of support out there a lot of the time. And we were oh, this is something we didn't really think about yet. So we're let's not shock the family before our wedding.
Yeah. And we both we have good relationships with our family in terms of we're very communicative with them. I, tell my parents everything. She tells her parents everything, kind of thing. And so it was something that we wanted to do the right way. And I think we decided it'd be easier to do that as a solid front, as a married couple, because of, the norms of society at the time.
It would mean something to our more traditional parents.
Yeah. And or family members and friends and the whole thing, because we're both firstborns. So, the idea of me getting married is something my entire family has been wanting for my whole life. And, me too. And, we've all been excited, been building to this. And, same with Katie's family. She's a firstborn, so she's got a whole family that just is ready for, her to get married and find the one and all that.
But that's why we decided to wait, so that we could have that background.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in some ways it, whatever decision you would have made obviously would have been fine. But I think it's probably what I would have done in the moment too, of especially because it's so new for you. I understand this desire to go out and share with everybody totally. And also there's the process of, let me figure this out a little bit more, because rightfully so, usually when I tell someone, they're going to come back to me with a bunch of questions, and I don't know if I'm going to have answers to those, which is fine. You don't have to, but there's some benefit in having a little bit of time to kind of figure that out.
Well, too, if you're also two people who like to put a bow on it and hand a complete package, it makes sense that you would wait.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, we wanted everyone to, the whole point of the wedding is to celebrate our love in a very big way. And, with all of our friends and family there. And we didn't believe that anybody would believe that our love is what it is or was what it was at the time, if they also knew that we were polyamorous.
Yeah.
Which is, it's still hard to convince people that,
Mhm.
it's almost like if you have multiple loves, then that means it's less of one and less of another,
Scarcity mindset, that so many of us carry.
Yep.
Which is,
you have 100 love units, and if you're given some of them to somebody, that means you got to take some of them from each other, right?
Exactly.
And that's something when we finally did start saying, one person who's really important to me, I think used the phrase, he was like, yeah, I mean, just at this point in my life, I'm focused more on quality than quantity. And I'm like, those things are not mutually exclusive. But it is hard. That's how people think of it. It's less equals better quality, more equals just frivolity.
Mm-hmm.
But it was nice in the wedding vows. We worked really closely with my best friend's mom, who was one who did our wedding, and took out all the parts that were forsaking no other, for no other or whatever. And we're like, yeah, just scratch that out.
We've been there.
Yep.
We've been there.
That was why we wrote our own vows.
We also did that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear, and I think one of the things that I loved about your story so far is it's been a very detailed telling, while you've also woven in
so
many amazing things that you've both learned and experienced and everything. And so I don't want to cut it off, and I'm not planning to. I think would love to hear what comes out the other side of this, because now you know about Holly. Holly is no longer a secret entity. Where does this take you to, coming out of the wedding, coming out of coming out?
Oh, goodness. All right. So I think we finished the wedding, we finished the honeymoon, and we got home. And I think literally the night we got back from our honeymoon, we both downloaded Field. So
you didn't waste a lot of time. Okay.
No. You wait. And so I had always kind of been I don't know if I'm going to want to sleep with anyone else right away, because I was still kind of in that zone. I was coming out of it. My mental health was much better at this point. I'd gotten on Lexapro, thank God for Lexapro, and was just generally feeling happier. And so I was okay, I think Beau was more on the apps. He was into it, and he was having a lot of fun. And I kept asking him things about how does it work? How does a profile look? And he was just download it and then you'll be able to see. And I was like, okay. And I did. And then it was really exciting immediately, because, you've been with one person for, what was it, our 5-year anniversary in September. And suddenly to have all of these, literally hundreds of people being I want to sleep with you. I was like, what? This exists? But yeah, so it was definitely just a very exciting moment. So I matched with someone almost immediately, and they lived close to where my family lives. And so I was like, I'm going to go see my family soon. Do I want to see this person? Yeah, okay, yeah, let's do it. So really hopped right in. When I went on my date with this guy, we had been married 2 weeks. And he was like, oh, so you're married? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, how long have you been married? I'm like, I think it was 2 weeks ago was the ceremony. And he was like, what? Really? Okay. And he's like, and how long have you been poly? And I'm like, just a couple months. He's like, oh, wow, this is fast. But it was a really wonderful experience. He was a really nice guy. And it was funny. My brother drove me to the date because I had told him, and I was so nervous. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. And then my brother turned up all the music in the car, and he's like, just scream as loud as you can. And I was like, okay. And I did it. And then he was like, okay, now go get him, Tiger. So if that tells you anything about my family, but no, it was good. And having that experience with that person, it kind of I don't know why. I think I do a little bit, and we can explore it here, but like it really switched that lever back inside of me where I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, I'm a sexual desirable person again. And maybe I do want to have sex, which was really cool. And I think a lot of that came from like, you know, being trapped during COVID with a person in like a tiny studio apartment. It takes a lot of that element out of relationships. You're more in caregiver roles for each other. And it's all about just like whoever is having the harder time in this ultimately hard time, like they're going to be taken care of in this moment. And we just kept switching off. And so it made it hard to be really romantic. And then like, but it was just us. It was just us that whole time. So I think sleeping with someone else was almost like a palate cleanser for that really hard experience of being in that very non-sexual environment for so long, of like, oh, I like kind of forgot what sex was like, and like what it means to like come on to someone and like show them that you want to be with them. Cause I was just clumsy. Like I just didn't know how to do it anymore. It'd been so long. So that was like, that first experience was really pivotal in terms of like the other experiences that followed and me feeling open enough to explore them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I have a couple of questions that I think, because to keep moving along, I think for me and maybe some listeners need a couple of things answered.
Yes.
So my questions are a couple. One is, I don't want to lose track of Holly in this. And Beau, you started to mention that you were also on the apps dating. And so would love to hear a little bit about sort of how things moved forward, at least to this point with Holly. And also the sort of reconciliation of, you didn't really want to do polyamory. You were pretty against it. And then you got offered the kissing card. And now you come back and you're like, well, hey, now I'm poly. And now Katie's on the apps. How have you sort of come to terms with that? That's a big shift to go through in just a few months.
Yeah, for sure. So Holly and I are happily in love. We are we're together. We're dating. I fly out there as often as possible. She flies out here as often as possible. But that was a conversation that we had to have shortly after. I don't know if it was right. It was after the wedding. We're still talking every single day for hours at a time, and so we finally sat down and had the will you be my girlfriend? Will you be my boyfriend thing? So we are very good. We've been together for a little over a year now, and again, I don't want to tell too much of me and Holly's story without Holly here. But,
that's okay.
It's going really well, and she's a very big part of my life.
And I love her to death. Oh my gosh. Like she and I have hung out now, and like she's done astrological readings for me. And she came here during like my birthday. And we had our first like polycule all togetherness. So that was February of this year. With my partner, David, who you don't even know about yet. And, but yeah, so.
Yeah.
I love it. And was she at the wedding? That's the last question. Was she at the wedding? Okay.
She came to the wedding.
And she looked hot. Oh my God.
Yeah. It was so wonderful. The hardest part was not kissing her. Anyway, the coming to terms with it all, with Katie getting into it, actually went surprisingly well for me. Because our trust and communication and love was so deep anyway, we both knew that no matter what happened with other people, it wouldn't affect our feelings for each other. So I was surprised at how easily it went down for what my reaction was to you seeing other people, both loving and sexually. And yeah, it was a fun realization for me to know it, not even fun, a safe realization for me to know that this was something that I trusted you with, and I trusted me with.
Yeah. And so I'm going to say with that, while that has been like a really beautiful thing about this journey for us, it did, at least for me, lull me into this false sense of security in terms of like, poly is just going to be so easy. Like, we are built for this. We're just like basically star students. And it wasn't until I fell in love with someone else that I was like, no, oh no, all of the toxic things that were inside of me before I met Beau are still there, and they're all coming to light, and this other partner of mine is getting the brunt of all of them. And why is this happening? And it's like, oh, because it's a brand new relationship and not one where you've like lived with the person for 5 years and are married to them. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe you're going to feel a little more insecure in this relationship. So I met David, like, I think it was fall is it equinox or solstice? Equinox. It was the fall equinox of 2022. So that's when we first met and started hanging out. He's further north than we are, so we're in a long distance relationship, but we hit it off right away. And yeah, like, that was the first time I'd had the experience of like actually falling for someone romantically outside of Beau and I's relationship. Before, it had just kind of been sexy times. So it was a brand new thing to explore. And he also has a partner. And we like just were trying to figure out what this was going to look like for us, I guess, because we hadn't really planned on getting into a romantic relationship when we first met up. But then obviously shit happens.
Because that was one of the things we decided early on was we were just going to let relationships blossom into what they were going to be, and not try and, control things or set things to a certain standard depending on, our relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And this is kind of where the thing that I diverted from before, with the question you guys asked about like being sexual and how it like is such an integral like part of how I view my self-worth and everything. So that has been the biggest challenge for me, I would say, in polyamory. Like, I think what a lot of people struggle with is that stuff at the beginning that was actually pretty damn easy for us, just based on like how we are with each other. But I think, the typical things that come up for people like jealousy, insecurity, all of that really came up when I started my relationship with David, because I was just so used to seeing Beau being with Holly or going on dates, and it didn't affect me at all. And then David would be like, I think this one person is hot. And I'm like, oh, that means I'm worthless. That means you hate me, right? And it's like, no, what's happening? Like, the poor man. So that's something I've had to like interrogate within myself so much. So actually this past year has just been huge in terms of like healing and doing like that head and heart work that is so hard and so exhausting, and really being like, why am I this way? Why did someone like, where did I learn this? And, how has this affected all of my relationships? And so, it's still definitely a journey, and it's still something I struggle with, especially that like internal insecurity. And, but I'm really lucky to have beautiful, magical, supportive partners who I could be like, oh my God, do you just think I'm like wackadoo? And they're like, no, like, it's okay. We're here. We still love you. So I've really lucked out with the people in my life, thank goodness, who are really seeing me through this process.
And it's a process that we're all going through. I know we told a lot of, we did a lot of things right. But we're still brand new. We're still novices. Like I know there are things that I'm doing wrong regularly, and I know there are things that I'm working on constantly. And that's something that I love about you, and that I love about me, and I love about us, in our relationship, in particular, is we're always trying to move forward. So we're always trying to evolve. And, I've had my struggles as well, in terms of, making sure that because while love may be infinite, time and energy aren't.
Yes.
And, and so it's a matter of, making sure that you take care of all the aspects of all the relationships here. And the great part is that when you're in a relationship, there's multiple people working together to make this thing thrive. So I think I've picked good ones, you've picked good ones, and it has been easier than it could have been, for sure.
Yeah.
It also
didn't want to paint it like a fairy tale, but
No, I mean, we're all at the end of the day, we're all human. You're all still learning, growing the whole time.
And we're going to bring you back in like a year, and you can tell us all of the year 2, what year 2 of this adventure is like. So,
well, hopefully by that time will have made another human, so that will add a whole other dynamic to all of this.
Yes, it will indeed.
Yes, it will. That's super exciting. Yeah,
and I think too, just to play on that, I think it doesn't sound like. I mean, yes, it seems like much of what you two have done has been somewhat easy or relatively easy, but I think that's a testament to the groundwork that you two have laid in your communication from the beginning of your partnership, and not something that you were, year 5, you're like, we should probably figure out how to communicate all of a sudden. You were doing that from the get-go, and maybe it wasn't at the same level it is today, but it also sounds like you started from a pretty good place. And I think that's a testament to both of you, but also it doesn't sound like you run from the hard, right? And something hard comes up, you go at that together, or even individually, right? You're like, hey, I need to talk to a therapist. I need this type of therapist, and I'm going to do it. And then you do it. You don't sit around and be like, well, I don't know. Those sound like hard skeletons to deal with. So we'll just stuff them back in the closet. Hope nobody ever asks me about this. And away we go, because we've seen that too.
Yeah. No, like
thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's such a sweet thing to say. But I think a huge part of it is also like Beau and I always just have a huge desire to live as authentically as possible. Like I'm queer, and I was closeted for a really long time for not thinking that I was queer enough. And so coming out that way was huge for me also. And I think I feel the same way with being poly. It's just this is just who we are, and there's nothing shameful about the way that we live and what we're doing. And so might as well do it as well as possible, set ourselves up for success.
Yeah. And so you two each have one other partner at the time currently, is that correct? And
yes, romantic partner, yes.
One other romantic partner. Thank you for that clarification. Also, I'm curious, and we don't necessarily need to go all the details unless you want to, but you've now told family and friends.
At least her brother.
At least your brother.
So we haven't told grandparents.
That's the generation we're working up to.
We're hoping soon. Because we had this realization where we're like, okay, we're going to have kids. My grandparents might live another 10 years. Are we going to really have our 10-year-old kid lie for us? No. So we're like, okay, we should tell them. But our parents know. Our siblings know. Pretty much all of our friends know. Yeah. And again, I think it is because, we are in other sexual relationships with other people. And I've had conversations with them, maybe people who lean more towards the swinger lifestyle, less towards more like the poly romantic type style. And they're like, oh, I would never tell my parents because that would just basically be me saying what my sex preferences are. But because, we're both in love with other people, it has made sense for us to at least, and people can share whatever they want, obviously, but for us, it's made sense to share it.
Because there's a lot of people, at least people that are unfamiliar with this world, do associate polyamory or non-monogamy with kink and
orgies,
orgies and the swinger lifestyle and stuff. And again, there's those are wonderful ways to live,
and can be part of it.
But it's that's not what we're talking about. And so it's trying to reframe what this looks like to the family. My sister was really wonderful. She was really easy about it. I actually told her before I told Katie, because we were tux shopping for the wedding. and I told her, and she was super cool about it. Very friendly, very, very welcoming and understanding and supportive. And I told my parents, and they've kind of had mixed reactions, but all leaning towards we support you. And so they've been trying to, learn more about it and be more supportive of that. But at the end of the day, it's been a fairly positive reaction. It's still all uncomfortable, and that's something we're all still working towards, is making it more comfortable and because it's our life, and it's real and it's what's happening.
I mean, I also made the mistake of telling my parents in a way that made it kind of sound like I was pregnant. And I think that they were really upset about that, or at least my mom was. She was like, I was like, so I have some news. And she was like, oh my God. And I'm like, Beau and I are polyamorous. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're going to be dating other people. And she's like, oh, I'm like, did you think I was pregnant? She's like, I can't even talk about this. The poor woman. She actually just met David, which was such a wonderful experience. Oh my gosh. And I was just so both proud of her for being open to doing that, and just filled with felt very seen, felt very loved.
Yeah.
I can see this. Beau and I are bringing another person into our relationship. Oh, really? Yeah, her name's Holly. She lives in California, and she's pretty amazing. So we're like, well, what the hell?
That's funny.
Oh,
God.
Yeah, but no, it's been well. It's worked out pretty well.
Good.
We're still working on it.
It's new. I mean, it's something that people aren't familiar with, so we're gotta have patience,
right? Yeah,
before it becomes normalized in their lives, because we're in it all the time. So it's so normalized for us. So it can be jarring when we talk to people who aren't poly or aren't spending that time with us, and they're like, "Oh, that," and I'm like, "Oh, you mean this huge part of me?" Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess you're not in this bubble all the time, so it makes sense."
And that's the other thing is it's our relationship is our relationship, and that's what the people in her family and my family are most familiar with, because we've been together for 6 years. But any other relationship that we're having is also has its own autonomy and its own world and its own life and its own power, and that's something that needs light and just as much respect and love as anything else. So it's and in the world we're in right now, it's kind of tough to to be as forward with that, but doing the tough stuff is what makes everything worth it, and it's what gets you to the good, to the other side.
That's it. It's way more good than struggle. So.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you both for everything that you shared today, and just it's been great. And I know we could keep talking for hours, and we will bring you back for another update. That would be amazing. But before we let you go, we just wanted to see, is there anything else either of you wanted to get out there?
I guess just to anyone who's starting this, or just anyone who's new to this, just to be really patient and kind to yourself. There are so many emotions and that you just would have never expected are going to come to light, and so many unhealed parts of you that are suddenly going to get poked. And you're really like, I didn't know that wound was open and that hurt so much. It seemed like it shouldn't have. So instead of like immediately doing what I did, which was like, I'm worthless and bad at being polyamorous, being like, hey, I am a human who is just figuring it out. And, just having a lot of like kindness and patience for yourself. Mm-hmm. I guess that's like that's the thing I need a reminder for. I'm saying that like that's something I've discovered, and like it's something I have to remind myself of. I had to remind myself of that last night. So yeah.
And I guess just open communication is so important, in any relationship, whether it's non-monogamous or monogamous or
platonic or
professional or anything, being clear and being open and understanding is just so helpful in solidifying your relationship with whoever you're talking to. And if you're looking to be non-monogamous, that's the only way to go.
Or like I said before, like everything is possible with good communication, no matter what type of relationship you're trying to pursue.
Yeah. I would say it's possible without good communication, but it's a whole hell of a lot harder. So I recommend it with the communication.
And way less fun.
Correct. Well, as Emma said, thank you both for sharing everything you did. And thank you to Holly and David as well for their contributions and supporting this and everything. So thank you to all of you. And we can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thank you so
it's
much.
Been wonderful.
And we're back.
Nailed it with Good excitement, too.
Thank you so much, Katie and Beau, for this amazing conversation and just being willing to share as much as you did. We love talking with you and just appreciate you both so much.
Yeah, you said it right. You said it perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a compliment.
It's perfection. You are perfection.
Wow. I'll take them all. Keep coming. Keep
and
coming.
They're recorded. You can come back to this episode anytime you need words of affirmation.
Yeah. See. So I have to remember this episode and come back to this point anytime I need that.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway. A quick reminder, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. There you can find information on our community as well as our favorite way to get tested for STIs, stcheck.com. I just had to plug that in there real quick.
Yeah, you had to whisper it. So
whisper it.
Yeah, it's ASMR or STDcheck.com.
Next week, we have an interview with Fernanda, who is the host of the Polycurious podcast. It's so much fun, so you're going to want to come back and check it out.
And until then, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. And I mean, if you're in Texas, we hope you are just, Texas? Bathing in ice cubes.
I think it's the whole South.
The whole Southwest. Okay. If you are in the
Phoenix
Southwest.
Is 120.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but they don't have ice in it anymore. It's all melted.
It's true. Anyway.
It's not too late for Texas. Anyway, I have no idea about any of that. We haven't been there.
Yes, we have. We're just not there right now.
That's what I mean. We haven't been exposed to that level.
Anyway. The point is anywhere that it's really hot, we hope you're staying cool. Is that what you're trying to say?
I was, and I was also thinking you should just join our community. Anyway, we're just joshing around now.
Okay.
Should we wrap it up?
Yes.
The faster we wrap it up, the faster we get to episode 300.
That's true.
All right. We'll see everybody in a week. Thank you all. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay cool or warm, depending on what you need.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.